Montana Territory, early spring of 1872, and the wind howled like it had something to prove. Vera Gaines stood in the doorway of the ramshackle cabin, her arms wrapped around her youngest, eyes stinging for more than just the cold. Ashlyn's small fingers clung to her threadbare skirts, while her brothers, Andrew and Eli, hunched inside, trying to coax life from damp firewood. The snow had melted last week, but winter was still clawing at their bones. 3 months since her husband died. 2 months since the last neighbor rode off, promising to bring back help. 1 month since she stopped believing anyone was coming. The sun was sinking fast behind the pines, and her oldest, Andrew, had barely spoken all day. He was only 10, too young to be carrying water in buckets and hammering nails with bloodied hands, but he did it anyway. Eli, only 8, had started coughing 2 days ago, and Vera had nothing but pine tea and prayers to offer. Ashlyn, just 4, had grown quiet, too quiet. Her hands trembled from more than cold as she stepped down the porch. She scanned the tree line again, knowing it was useless, hoping anyway. Then she saw him. A lone rider, dark against the setting sun, crossing the ridge slow and steady, horse-tired but sure-footed. At first, she thought it might be a trap or a trick of light, but the man didn't vanish. He just kept coming, dust rising at his boots, rifle strapped to his back, and a pack tied behind his saddle. He pulled up 10 feet from the cabin, eyes taking in the broken fence, the sagging roof, the mother clutching her baby like a shield. "You the Gaines widow?" he asked, voice roughened by trail dust and wind. Vera stepped forward slowly. "Who are you?" He took off his hat. "Isaiah Jennings. Rode up from Miles City. Got word a widow and her kids were left out here with nothing. Figured I'd see for myself." She blinked. "Miles City's 4 days out. I ride fast," he said, "and I do not take kindly to folks being left behind." Vera did not trust easy anymore. She had been promised help before. It never came. But Isaiah's eyes met hers, steady and calm, not asking anything from her, just waiting. Ashlyn peeked out from behind her, then hid again. Isaiah looked down at the girl, then back at Vera. "I got supplies. Flour, beans, some sugar. I can fix fences, too. If you'll let me." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unsure. Then Eli coughed from inside, sharp and dry. Vera flinched. She stepped back and opened the door wide. "Come in." He did not hesitate. Inside, Isaiah knelt by the fire, pulling dry kindling from his pack. "I passed a trapped deer on the way in. Brought some meat. I will get it started." Andrew stood in the corner, arms crossed tight. "Why are you helping us?" Isaiah glanced at the boy. "Because someone should have a long time ago." Eli sat up on the cot, eyes wide. "You have a horse?" Isaiah smiled gently. "Sure do. Her name's Daisy." Ashlyn looked up at that, peeking out again. Vera brushed her daughter's hair back softly. The girl leaned into her. Isaiah moved around like he belonged there, but without force, like every motion was an offer, not a demand. He hung the meat over the fire, checked the chimney for blockages, and even nailed a loose board back in place above the window. Vera watched him, heart pounding slow and loud. She did not want to owe anyone anything. Not again. But her children ate that night, full-bellied and warm, and Isaiah sat by the hearth like he had nowhere else to be. Later, when the children were asleep, she stepped out into the night air. The stars were sharp against the black sky, and her breath hung in clouds. Isaiah stood by the fence, arms resting on the top rail. He did not turn when she came up beside him. "I do not know how to thank you," she said. "You do not owe me anything," he said. "Just hate seeing folks left behind." Vera studied his profile. There was a steadiness to him she had not seen in months, maybe longer. He did not flinch at the dark or the cold. He just stood there, solid as the mountains. "Are you planning to leave tomorrow?" she asked. He looked at her then, eyes soft. "Planning to stay as long as I am needed." She did not answer, just nodded once, then turned and walked back to the cabin. Inside, Eli had curled up against Andrew. Ashlyn clutched her cloth doll with both hands. The fire burned steady, warm for the first time in days. Vera sat on the edge of the cot, hands folded in her lap. She did not cry. Not anymore. But something loosened in her chest, something tight and tired. Outside, Isaiah stayed by the fence for a long time, watching the stars and the cabin and the woman who had opened her door. He had not known what he would find when he rode up that ridge. Now he knew he was not going anywhere. The ground had softened with the thaw, and by the third morning Isaiah had cleared the collapsed lean to behind the cabin. He worked without noise or comment, digging post holes while mist still clung to the creek and the cabin's roof gave off the last of its night frost. Vera came out with a tin cup of coffee, though she hadn't said it was for him. She set it on the stump near where he worked, then stepped back without waiting for thanks. "Your boy's watching me," Isaiah said after a while, not looking up. Vera followed his gaze to where Andrew crouched by the woodpile, pretending to whittle. "He doesn't trust easily." "Good," Isaiah said. "He shouldn't." She waited, expecting more, but he just tamped the earth around a post and moved to the next one. Ashlyn wandered out with her doll tucked under her arm. She walked over to Isaiah and held out a small, grubby piece of dried apple. "For your horse." Isaiah took it like it was gold. "Daisy'll be real pleased." Ashlyn nodded solemnly and returned to sit on the porch step, swinging her legs. Vera glanced toward the tree line. "There's a stream about half a mile west. Fish if you know how." Isaiah wiped his hands on a rag. "I know how." "Good." That afternoon he took Andrew with him. Didn't ask. Just packed a line and handed the boy a second pole, then started walking. Andrew hesitated, glancing at Vera. She gave the smallest nod. They were gone for 2 hours. When they returned, Andrew carried the catch himself. Not a word passed between them, but Isaiah clapped the boy on the shoulder once, and Andrew didn't flinch. That evening, Vera cleaned the fish while Isaiah repaired the back shutter. Eli sat near him, sketching in the dirt with a stick. "You draw quiet," Isaiah said. Eli shrugged. "Don't got paper. You use what you have. That's smart." Eli's lines deepened with care. "You ever draw?" "No, but I watch close. That helps too." Vera listened from the corner where she was sewing a rip in Ashlyn's only good dress. The way Isaiah's voice carried low and steady, the way he gave each child his full attention without crowding them, it stirred something beneath her ribs she hadn't expected. Later, she stepped outside to shake out the dress before hanging it to dry. Isaiah stood at the fence again, this time with his hat in his hand, watching the moon rise over the hills. "You don't talk much," she said. "I talk when there's something worth saying." She crossed her arms. "You always ride out for strangers?" He looked over at her. "Not always. But you did for us. I was raised to believe if you see a fire going out, you don't just watch it die." She met his eyes. "Most folks around here stopped believing in that. Most folks forgot things can be mended." The wind moved across the field, bending what grass had started to grow. Vera looked down at her hands. The skin was raw in places, palms cracked from cold and work, but they weren't shaking anymore. "I don't know what you're hoping to find here," she said. "I'm not hoping for anything," Isaiah said. "I'm just staying long enough so you don't have to hold all of it alone." She didn't answer. He didn't push. After a while, they both turned toward the cabin. The glow from the window cast their shadows long across the dirt, two figures standing still in a world that hadn't been still in a long time. By the end of the first week, Isaiah had patched the roof line, hauled water from the creek twice daily, and started carving a trough for the chickens Vera hoped to buy once there was coin enough. He never asked what her plans were, just made space around them, like he figured she still had some. On the 8th morning, Vera's boots sank into the softened ground behind the cabin, where Isaiah had started turning the soil. He worked quiet, sleeves rolled to the elbow, sweat darkening his collar. A spade leaned against his thigh, and he was coaxing a dented tin of seeds from his saddlebag. "You planting already?" she asked, arms crossed to keep the wind from slipping down her sleeves. "Ground's ready," he said. "Only got a few things, but they'll take if we're lucky. Squash, beans, bit of turnip." She rubbed her palms together. Didn't expect you to stay this long. I don't leave work half done. He crouched to press the seeds into place, careful fingers moving with a steadiness that made her throat tighten. She crouched beside him, brushing away a stone. You think you'll go when it's done? Isaiah didn't answer right away. If I thought you wanted me to, I would have gone already. Vera pressed her hand into the dirt beside his. I don't know what I want. He looked at her then, not searching, just waiting. She stood first. Better get inside before Ashlyn tries to wash the dishes without water again. He chuckled once, a low thing that stayed in his chest, then went back to planting. That evening, Andrew asked to help mend the tack Isaiah kept near the fence post. Isaiah handed him an awl and thread without instruction. When Andrew pricked his thumb, he didn't curse or throw it down. He just blinked fast and kept going. Got a steady hand, Isaiah said. Andrew didn't look up. Not steady enough. You'll get there. Vera watched them from the side window, her hands wet with soap. She hadn't known what quiet could feel like when it didn't come from fear or grief. Later, as dusk settled, she walked out to where Isaiah was laying stones to mark the garden rows. She held out a folded piece of paper, brittle at the edges. My husband's handwriting, she said. He kept notes on the land where the frost held longest, what grew best. Thought you might know what to make of it. Isaiah unfolded it, eyes scanning the page. He was a careful man. He had to be. He folded it back along the old creases. You want me to follow what he started? I want something to grow, she said. Doesn't matter whose hand starts it. Isaiah tucked the paper into his breast pocket. Then we'll grow it. The wind shifted, warm for the first time in days. Vera stepped closer without meaning to, and he didn't move away. You got family somewhere? She asked. Out in Kansas, he said. A sister and her boys. I send money when I can. They know where you are? No. I don't like to stay in one place long enough to make promises I can't keep. Vera's voice was soft. Are you planning to keep any here? Isaiah looked down at her hand. It wasn't reaching for his, but it was close. I think I already have, he said. When she looked up at him, her eyes didn't hold fear anymore, just the long ache of wanting to believe. He didn't reach for her, just stood beside her until the light faded and the stars came out one by one, slow and sure. The following week brought a warm rain that softened the hills and left the air smelling of wet pine and turned earth. The cabin roof held through the night, and Isaiah didn't need to rise once to check for leaks. When Vera stepped outside in the morning, she found him near the shed, sharpening the blade of a draw knife with quiet focus. I've been thinking of building a coop, she said. If the chickens come, they'll need somewhere dry. Isaiah nodded, testing the edge against his thumb. I've got leftover boards from the lean-to. We could start tomorrow. She tucked a damp strand of hair behind her ear. I'll measure out the space. He looked up then. You ever built one before? No, she admitted. But I watched my uncle do it once, back in Ohio. Isaiah set the blade down. You remember how he joined the corners? With pegs and square joints. Said nails split the pine too easy. Your uncle was right. Vera smiled just a little. The kind of smile that came from remembering something that hadn't hurt yet. That afternoon, he rode out to check the snares he'd set near the ridge. He took Eli with him this time, tying a strip of red cloth to the boy's belt so he'd be easy to spot in the trees. When they returned near dusk, Eli carried a rabbit by the ears, looking proud and a little sick all at once. Vera met them near the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. He didn't shoot it, did he? Isaiah shook his head. Trapped it clean. Helped me skin it too. Eli looked up at her. It wasn't scary. I didn't say it was, she replied, though her voice caught at the edges. That evening, Andrew sat on the floor near the hearth, carving a length of wood into something that might one day be a whistle. Ashlyn lay curled in Vera's lap, drowsy and warm. Isaiah sat nearby, oiling his saddle straps with slow, rhythmic care. You always ride alone? Andrew asked suddenly, not looking up from his carving. Isaiah glanced over. Most times. Why? Isaiah paused. Because sometimes it's easier to keep moving than stay where things hurt. Vera's eyes flicked toward him, but she didn't speak. Andrew didn't ask more, just kept carving. Later, after the children had gone to bed, Vera stepped outside to hang the rabbit skin to dry and found Isaiah leaning against the fence rail looking toward the dark hills where the clouds had broken. "You ever think about staying?" she asked. "I've thought about a lot of things I didn't believe I'd earn," he said without turning toward her. She walked closer. "What would it take for you to believe it?" His jaw shifted slightly. "Maybe time. Maybe a sign that the place needs me as much as I need it." "You think I haven't seen what this place has become since you rode in?" He turned then slowly. "That's your doing too." "I was just keeping it upright," she said. "You gave it a reason to be more than that." He didn't answer, but something in the way his shoulders settled told her he'd heard it deep. She stood beside him in the stillness. No wind, no voices. Just the night and the quiet understanding that something here had shifted, not quick and sudden, but like a river slowly carving out its path. After a while, Vera said, "Tomorrow, I'll show you the old well. It's dry now, but I think there's still good stone in the walls." Isaiah's voice was low. "We'll see what can be drawn up." And she knew he wasn't just talking about water. The coop was finished by late April. Vera and Isaiah worked side by side through the wind and the soft rains, measuring by hand, shaving pegs to fit snug without splitting the pine. Andrew dug the post holes, knees muddy to the thigh, while Eli sorted through discarded nails for the straight ones. Ashlyn sat nearby on a quilt square, humming to herself and pretending to feed her rag doll with a spoon carved from birch bark. When the last board was set and the door hung square, Isaiah stepped back and ran a calloused palm along the frame. "Won't win any prizes," he said, "but nothing'll get in that shouldn't." Vera dusted her hands on her apron. "Good. I'm tired of waking to fox prints." That night, they ate the last of the dried venison in a stew thickened with beans and wild onion. Vera rinsed the bowls in warm creek water while Isaiah checked the latch on the cabin door. When she stepped inside, he was near the hearth, unfolding a small canvas pouch. "I found something," he said. She dried her hands on her skirt. "What is it?" He held up a worn metal disc strung on rawhide. "From Fort Shaw. Cavalry issued. Found it near the edge of your property, under some brush." She stepped closer. "That shouldn't be out here." "Closest patrol's 100 miles south." "Could have been from years back," Isaiah said. "But it was fresh-turned earth." Vera narrowed her eyes. "You think someone's passed through?" He nodded. "Could be trappers. Could be deserters. Could be nothing. But I'll ride out in the morning just to be sure." "You'll take Andrew," she said, voice firm. Isaiah met her gaze. "I was planning to." They left at first light. Vera watched from the porch, Ashlyn in her arms, Eli curled against her side. The sight of Andrew sitting straight in the saddle behind Isaiah stirred something slow and certain in her chest. The boy who hadn't spoken more than a few words the first week now rode with his shoulders back, hands steady on the saddle horn. They returned before dusk, dust in their hair, saddlebags heavier than when they left. "Old trail," Isaiah said, sliding down. "Couple of rusted snares, nothing recent. No sign of strangers." Andrew handed Vera a pouch of wild mint. "He showed me where it grows thick. Said it keeps the flies off." Vera touched his cheek, warm from sun and ride. "Did you thank him for that?" Andrew looked toward Isaiah, who was unsaddling Daisy. "I'll help him with the tack." Once the children were asleep, Vera stepped out behind the cabin. Isaiah was washing his hands at the rain barrel, sleeves pushed to his elbows. "You didn't have to go so far," she said. "I did," he replied. "You've got young ones here. I wasn't about to leave anything to chance." She walked up beside him. "I've been thinking about what comes next." He dried his hands slowly. "Tell me." She looked toward the coop, then back to the dim glow through the cabin windows. "I've been holding everything together with twine and stubbornness. But now, I've got something steadier." Isaiah waited. "I want you to stay," she said. "Not just through planting. Not until the roof falls in again. I want you here, with us." His hands stilled. "I don't own land. Don't have money put up anywhere. Just tools and a mare and a name that's not worth much outside of my sister's kitchen. I'm not asking for anything you don't already give," she said. "You've been showing up every morning, every chore, every quiet moment." That's more than I ever had before. He turned to face her. And if I stayed, what would you want from me? Not a promise you can't keep. Just the truth and a place beside me at the table. Isaiah's voice was low. I can give you that. Vera stepped forward until there was nothing left between them but breath. He touched her face like it might break, hands rough but sure. She leaned into him, and when their foreheads touched, she closed her eyes and let herself believe. I never thought I'd want this again, she whispered. You didn't have to, he said. You just had to let it come when it did. They kissed beneath the first stars, slow and certain, like it had been waiting on both of them all along. By early May, Isaiah moved his things into the empty corner of the cabin and built a wall of shelves for Vera's canning jars. The children began calling him by name without prompting. Ashlyn took to following him around the yard with her doll tucked under one arm, while Eli started drawing horses in the dirt beside the coop. Andrew asked to ride out with him every other day, and Isaiah taught him how to read tracks and mend leather. The garden sprouted under their care, rows of squash and beans pushing up in dark green tufts. Vera taught Isaiah how to bake rye bread from the starter she'd kept alive through the worst of winter. He taught her how to read the clouds for weather, and together they rebuilt the smokehouse that had fallen to rot. Neighbors started drifting back by summer. Word had spread that the Gaines place hadn't gone under after all. A man from Three Ridges overtraded 6 hens for help mending his cart. Another brought a barrel of lard in exchange for seeds from Vera's garden. By harvest time, the cabin had grown quiet in the way a place does when it's full, the kind of quiet made of warm meals, shared chores, and the hush of steady breathing at night. When the first snow fell, Vera and Isaiah stood on the porch watching it settle over the fields. She leaned into his side and he wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. You ever think you'd have this? She asked. No, he said, but I learned to stop turning away from what's offered. She took his hand and pressed it to her stomach. His breath caught. You're sure? I am. He looked at her the way a man looks when the ground holds firm beneath his feet after a long crossing. We'll build another room come spring, he said. We will. Inside, the fire was already lit, and the children were laughing about something Eli had said. Isaiah opened the door for her, and she stepped through ahead of him, the warmth rising to meet them both. He closed it behind them, and the wind stayed outside where it belonged.